We'll call the meeting to order Monday, June the 7th. If you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll have a moment of silence. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A moment of silence, please. Thank you. We need to approve the agenda, and there'll be one change. It'll be item 6, where it says General Fund Budget Amendment 18. That'll be number 19 instead of 18. Any other changes? If not, I need a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda as amended, sir.
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Have public comments. Anybody would like to say anything? Go right ahead.
I was first here tonight, so I thought I ought to go first. I've been to meetings here. It's the first time I've actually got to speak, but it's something that's important as what I experienced a little while back and experience it every now and then, so here I am. Last Monday was Memorial Day, and we had the Memorial Day ceremony at Veterans Park. It went real well. I went to the VFW about 8:30 that morning to help get everything squared away there at the park, and had a lot of help doing it. And then after the ceremony, we had a flag retirement. We stayed down there till after 6 o'clock, and of course in the meantime got all those chairs and stuff back. So I finally get home about 6:37, and finally get to resting, and about 10:30, all of a sudden, ka-whoom! And I actually thought a tree had fallen on my house. And I got out of the chair faster than I usually do, but anyway, I went outside. My wife was out there on the patio, and as soon as I opened the door, then I seen a huge flash, and then ka-whoom again. And then I realized that one of my neighbors is setting off what sounded like commercial-grade fireworks just down the street. I know Bobby and John appreciate this. It sounded like a North Vietnamese 122 millimeter round hitting right close by. And it upset me so much I called the authorities. I called the police, then they sent 2 sheriff's deputies over there. And I just want to say they were 2 all-American guys. Their uniforms were immaculate. They were, very friendly and to the point, and they basically said there's not anything I can do. There's nothing to say I can do anything, other than if I hear it, I can go talk to them about that. And that's one of the reasons I'm here. Here I am, just like all the other neighbors that live in that area, are sitting there minding your own business, try not to do nothing to disturb everybody around me. And then you have an individual, I'm sure you have other individuals throughout the county, besides this and other things you guys have to deal with, but does this with little regard for not only the people that's close by, but any children that's close by and any animals that are close by. And there just needs to be something that separates somebody's right to disturb when they want to against somebody that tries not to disturb those people's rights. And that's what I'm here. I don't know what you can do. I don't know if you can use it under a noise ordinance or disturbing the peace or whatever, but there needs to be something that can guide our local authorities to at least where they can call on that person without having to hear it themselves, just to hopefully quiet down, and hopefully he'll realize that. And other people, like I say, I'm sure he ain't the only one. I'm not talking about 4th of July, and I'm not talking about these fireworks you can buy Food Line, Walmart, and all that. So I don't know where he got these, but he lives in the woods behind the Catholic church up through there on Highland Drive. And if it keeps going, one of these days there's going to be a fire, there's going to be a lot of things. And I'm sure in other areas, people may be a little more careful about doing these and doing it at a certain time of the year. Not against fireworks, I'm against disturbing the neighborhood when there's really no need to. And even 4th of July, of course, this happens all week long, but there just needs to be something that you shouldn't be able to disturb your neighbor, disturb the people, the kids, the animals in that area for no reason other than I just want to hear a loud noise. And that is why I'm here. If anybody needs to ask me a question, you're welcome to do so. Are we good?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Public comments? If not, we'll close that section. We'll go on to a public hearing for Jerry's Ways. Hop right up there.
I only have one for approval tonight. It is Jerry's Way. It's been submitted by Joy Mains and others. We have 2 structures going in on that driveway. It's off of Pine Swamp Road in the Sparta Fire District and the Whitehead Township.
Policy still remains that we don't name roads after individuals,
First and last names.
first and last name, so we aren't, I can't get Thomas Jones Road in it yet.
No.
Okay. No further questions, Mr. Chair?
Michelle?
No further questions.
Meets all the qualifications, all the paperwork. Fire chief signed off on it.
Well, via text, yes.
Is there anybody, any comments?
Looking for a decision tonight? Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, we'll close the public hearing. That was a 4-0. Okay, presentation to the board, Via Health. Brian? You're up.
So first off, I'd like to thank you, Commissioners, for allowing us to come back and speak tonight and follow up on some issues and concerns that you had last month at our presentation. So just wanted to do that. And Vice Chairman, we're down for 10 minutes. We might have a little more meat than that, but you can give us the hook whenever you want to. So feel free to do that.
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion that we allow the time that is needed for the presentation.
That would be fun.
Perfect.
Go ahead.
Our Senior Vice President, Donald Roos, most of these issues are around provider issues. He's really our content expert. He'll be doing the bulk of the presentation, but at the end, we want to do questions together and also answer any questions you might have about our consolidation with Cardinal Innovations as well. So we want to make sure you have time to ask those questions.
Thank you, Commissioners. Definitely great to be back up in Sparta again. I always enjoy the ride up here and the beautiful scenery, so I appreciate that. We put together a quick presentation for you around some of the issues identified in our last conversation. So if you can switch to the next one. These were the issues that were identified in the last presentation, just to make sure that we're covering that. Was access to child residential placements, lack of availability of some services were noted, some conversation around the Wilkes FBC, conversation around 2 providers that had left our network, a member of concern was noted, and then an issue around member homelessness that is a new issue within the county. And so those are the areas we're going to address today, and if there's any additional issues we missed, we're definitely open to all of those conversations as well. Next. Yep, sorry. Should have muted that.
Good timing.
Yeah, I know. It's always that way, right? Access to residential services, and my eyes aren't as good as they used to be, or I'd read that one. But I'll move back and forth. So, pulled some data. I always like to start with data, right? Because that sort of drives conversation for us. So, I pulled the number of kids from Alleghany County that were in residential placements over the last year for calendar year 2020, just to make sure our data was correct. You'll see there we had a total of 7 kids that were served in a psychiatric residential treatment facility. 6 were served in a level 3 residential treatment facility, and then 5 children were in therapeutic foster level placement. Part of the conversation at the last meeting was the issue of some of those kids being placed out of state or further away from the county. And so you'll see out of those 18 kids, 2 of them were identified as being served in an out-of-state facility. We did do some background on that, and it looked like that all of those kids were referred to in-state facilities, and there was not an available bed in-state prior to seeking out-of-state. I'll also note that VIA currently has contracts with every residential program in the state that's qualified. So there's not an issue of there's just magically some facilities that have beds that our kids can't get into. We're looking at every facility in the state prior to that's happening, and so we are combing that. And we talked briefly at our last presentation, but we got numerous projects in place around increasing the number of beds. We're getting ready to start a project with Benchmarks. I'm familiar with that. It's a large provider organization in the state that's going to be working with us, our local DSSs, your DSS, on a therapeutic foster recruitment campaign. We know we need more families in foster care serving our children, and so we're going to be doing a system-wide recruitment campaign, trying to get more families engaged, trying to keep more of our kids locally. We've also done a lot of work on the residential treatment facilities that are located in our catchment area. We have locked down those contracts with them to assure that those beds will be utilized for local kids first prior to accepting kids from other parts of the state. That assures hopefully that our kids can stay local prior to going anywhere else in the state or out of state. Next slide. Another question that was asked was around ACT services, whether the availability. I think some of the challenges around availability over the last year has been around the pandemic, and a lot of services moved to telehealth during the pandemic. Wasn't as visible in some of our communities, but you'll see here ACT services are available in Alleghany County. There's been a total of 9 individuals served on the ACT team from Alleghany County. That team currently is not full and is not at capacity. So additional individuals could be referred and served on that ACT program within the county. We're starting to see, coming out of the pandemic, that additional numbers are starting to go up. And I think that, and we'll talk about at the end of the presentation, some solutions, but I think this continues to point out the need of us really making sure we have a good network within the county to make sure that individuals are being identified, referred, and they're really getting the access to those services that they need. Next slide. Substance abuse services was another one. We looked at that. Daymark Recovery Services is our main substance abuse provider in the county. At present, they're currently offering substance abuse individual therapy group, dual diagnosis group, a pre and perinatal substance abuse group, peer support, and supported employment. You may feel like, why did you throw employment in there? Supported employment is really a key piece of helping people to recover. And so I always like to include those in our substance abuse continuum. All of those services are currently offered and available in the county. I checked, none of those currently have a wait list for services, and they are accepting referrals into that. So if anybody's experiencing a challenge or people are being put on a wait list or they're not getting direct access to that service, we definitely would want to know that as well. But as of now, it looks like that there's capacity in each of those services today. Next, mobile crisis was a question around access to mobile crisis. So I pulled some mobile crisis data. We actually track this really closely around the region because we want to make sure that this is a critical crisis service, that people can access it and they can get the services they need in a timely way. You'll see I highlighted Alleghany County on the map. They had 13 calls for mobile crisis that were served in the county. Move on to the next slide. Out of those 13, all 13 were emergent status. That meant it truly was an emergency, and we track that just to see if, they're getting calls that maybe are not emergencies. That happens in the emergency system, but 13 were very appropriate calls. They were all responded to. Next slide. And then you'll see here just kind of a breakdown of what happened to those 13. The goals of mobile crisis is to keep those individuals out of an ED, keep them out of the jail system, make sure that their needs are being met within the system. So you'll see there all 13 individuals that were identified as emergent status. None of those went to the ED and was diverted to the ED. So that's definitely a positive for Alleghany County. Next slide. See down here a quick breakdown. We track this as well. How many of them are Medicaid versus uninsured? We know that the Medicaid reimbursement is significantly better than our uninsured, and we have to continually to keep that money in place because a lot of times the individuals accessing these services tend to be more uninsured than Medicaid, and we see this in the data here, that out of the 13, 10 of those individuals did not have any insurance at all, depended on state funding for services. And then again, where did the crisis service take place? You'll see here that the majority of those were in the individual's home. We like to see that too, where that's happening at. So it shows that mobile crisis is going out. They're engaging people in their community or in their home status. So that was a positive as well when we looked at that. And then you'll see the response time. By definition, mobile crisis has a 2-hour response time. That's sort of the max for 2 hours. We like to do much better than that across our system here. So response time for Alleghany County for those 13 is they responded and saw that those on average of those 13 within 41 minutes. You also see there that gave you a comparison of our whole catchment area on the response team. This is not just for Daymark, this is several other mobile crisis providers we have. You'll see though that Alleghany County had the fastest response time out of all of our counties for that. We would like to see that 13 number. We think it should be higher. And so that's a conversation of are people aware the service exists? Can we make sure that information's out there so that people are needing access can get it to it in a timely way? Also pulled some data on outpatient services, how quickly people can get access to that. So we do contract for a crisis walk-in center at Daymark in Alleghany County. That's intentional. That's our safety net. So when everything else goes bad in a county, there needs to be some place that somebody can just show up and get services. They don't need an appointment. They just walk in and get what they need the same day. And so we measure this across all 22 of our counties. How well are people getting access to that service on the same day without any appointment, just showing up to the organization. You'll see here the data for Alleghany. They had in 2020 273 people that just walked in without an appointment in Alleghany County. 265 were able to return home after that crisis, so they didn't go to an ED, they didn't go to another particular service. And then you'll see the average wait time across the system. So we have in contracts for all our walk-in centers that when somebody walks in and they're in an emergency, that they need to be screened within 15 minutes, and then they need to be either seen within a certain wait time. So for somebody that's urgent, they need to be seen within an hour. And if they're just regular routine, meaning they walked in but there's no emergency at all, they have to be seen within 2 hours. And so you'll see here that the average wait time to triage, that's that 15-minute protocol that they need to triage them. Within there is they met underneath that 15 minutes every month except for the month of December. Where they fell out there, but on average, they were triaging people in under 10 minutes of them walking into the facility. And then the average wait time to assessment, that's that hour, 2 hour capacity to actually go back and see a clinician or see somebody that's going to do a clinical intervention. And so you'll see there, even for the most acute or urgent status or emergent, they were averaging, roughly around 15 minutes average over those months. They were able to get somebody from triage state in front of a clinician. So definitely that's a positive, and we see that that is showing that we have capacity in that system to see people as they're walking in. Also, we talked about the newly renovated Synergy Recovery Facility. Quick picture there. Shirley Randleman has been great working on this project with us. This is a old facility, been completely renovated, 16-bed facility-based crisis in North Wilkesboro. This facility is up and running, and we'd like to talk to the county and law enforcement around how better to access this facility. We know historically it's been mostly a detox facility, but it's able to do facility-based crisis work now, and we're working to get it IVC designated. This would be the closest facility, facility-based crisis for Alleghany County. They have open beds today, which means officers can take people over there. They're not at capacity, and we're talking with them based on the need of the county, whether the county would want us to reserve a certain number of those beds just for the county to assure that there's immediate access to those beds if law enforcement or anybody else needed it. And so that's a discussion for us on the table depending on what the volume is. We wouldn't want beds to go unused, of course, when people are in crisis, but we are willing to look and see whether setting 2 beds aside for the county to access would be a positive. I'll also note this facility is completely, it's in an exclusive contract relationship with VIA, so all of those beds are just committed to our region. And so there's no issue of people coming in from, Old Cardinal or Partners or Alliance, any of those that can't admit that. All 16 bed is just committed for VIA, and we're trying to make these available specifically for this northern region. Alleghany, Wilkes, Watauga, so they have a closer drive. We don't want people having to drive to Asheville, Statesville, to the next crisis one. So we're really wanting to keep these local, keep people close. And so that's a point of conversation as we move forward. We definitely want to try to maximize. And then providers that left the network, I know Ms. Luffman talked about a couple providers that left the network. Definitely wanted to follow up with that. I did meet with Capstone, Pam Andrews, spoke with her on the phone, had lunch with her today. That meeting went really well. As you know, Pam is an incredible person that really knows a lot about behavioral health. She knows what the community needs are. So we had a really great conversation around what she thought some of the community needs are and how we can maximize that. Talked with her a little bit about what I'll present to you guys a little bit around some solutions. She was very positive around that and thought that we really could plug in and really connect some services in the county to maximize them more efficiently than they currently are. Also spoke with Mountaintop Counseling, Kay Luffman. Again, Ms. Luffman, wonderful mother you have there for sure. She was very sweet. We talked about some of her challenges initially in the network around getting a contract, getting authorized. Her reported back to us is everything's working well now. The paperwork, she's not required to do any prior auth. All the services she currently provides for us are unmanaged, so she don't have to send us any paperwork. She just has to send us the bill. The pay for, she said her billing is going smoother. She did express some concern around really knowing where to refer people in the community for services, which definitely understand that happens a lot, especially with our LIPs. We're working and seeing people all day. It's hard to keep up with all the changes that are going in the system. So I did send her a list of available resources and connection points in the county to help address that, and I told her we would follow back up with her to make sure she had the resources she needed in order to refer and get people connected. Next slide. Next one was a member of concern that was noted about a member in our system. This child, we did do some research, went back and saw what the issues are. This child was removed from a PRTF by Alleghany DSS based on a judge's order for the trial home placement. And so that was outside of VIA's control. VIA's chief medical officer reviewed the case with the care management and the team at the time. The team worked with DSS and community providers to deliver home wrapped around clinical supports to this child, which is really the max you can do once a judge orders that child to return home, is for us to wrap that home the best we can with levels of support. Child currently is stable in the home, engaged with a provider and via care management. And so even though it was sort of bumpy at roads, it's a pretty good outcome at the moment for that. We'll also note that, I think this was one of the childs that was placed out of state and was able to return back home. So that's definitely a positive as well. And then lastly, we talked about the homeless outreach and engagement here, and that was sort of a new issue that we didn't really, wasn't aware that Alleghany was experiencing. And so we went back and we looked at, well, what can we do to address some of those concerns for the county? And so what we'd like to propose, and we think it will help not only with this issue, but some of the other issues we talked about of truly getting people connected to the right places in the county and having some disconnection. We're proposing that we would fund a community navigator that would be paid for by VIA and that would work within the county to help people get connected to the right services. So if you saw somebody that was homeless, had a behavioral health need, this navigator can engage with them, would be a certified peer specialist, engage them, they can help them get to where they need to go. You wouldn't have to necessarily call law enforcement to do that, which is not how you probably want to use your law enforcement to start with. This navigator could work with your jails, could work with your health departments, could work with your DSSs. As people come in and you see that there's needs, I think the big challenge is getting that person that you see with the needs to the place that where somebody can help them with their need. And so we're proposing that we'll fund this navigator and come back and revisit with you guys 6 months from now and see, is this navigator working? Are they making contacts? Are they getting people connected to the right services in the system? That navigator would also be helping connect people to housing supports that are in the community. We have a full housing team at VIA, so making sure they know what those resources are. Our support and employment services, which is a really specialized, I'd love to talk with you guys more about that. We do operate a supportive employment program called NC Core. It's one of the key initiatives by the State Department around imagining supportive employment services across the state that we've implemented as a core pilot for the state. Doing that, access to medical services, mental health, substance abuse, and of course, peer support. And so that's part of our proposal, how we can try to tackle some of this homeless thing. And then based on the numbers, if we need to come back and we need to bring in additional people, or we need to look at, some type of shelter or something else would be more suitable for that homeless population, we definitely can do that. Popular guy today. Next slide. Oh, and so I just ran through all of them really quick.
John, do you have any questions?
Yes. I noticed that your numbers are in quarter 2 and 3, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Quarter 2 and 3.
Yeah, for mobile crisis.
By that time, the damdemic, as I like to call it, the population more or less resided themselves to what was going on. I would be interested in seeing the figures for fiscal year 20, quarter 3 and 4, because that would be the initial blast, and I believe that put a lot of pressure on the general public. Now, I note on slide number 7, down in the corner, you say face-to-face responses, and this is under the mobile crisis management. Do you count Zoom as face-to-face?
No, these would be direct.
Person to person.
Person.
Sit across the table. Okay, if you could provide that just as general information, I would appreciate it.
We definitely can do that, and then at the end of our fourth quarter, we can give you a full fiscal year report. There's a 60-day lag from the point of collecting the data till it rotates in. That's why we're always operating a quarter behind on any of that data, but we definitely can get it to you.
Understood. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Michelle?
You mentioned that some of the services available are, they have, group therapy as well as individual therapy. It's one of the things that I hear quite often is that, I have a hard time getting a appointment to see for individual therapy because there's just not that many therapists available, which I know that Paige has probably had a hard time hiring therapists because it's just, I'm sure you have that throughout your whole system.
Nobody can hire anybody right now. It's been a
Right.
huge challenge, yeah.
So, my next question is, I don't know how you're going to tackle this affordable housing thing because there's just not affordable housing up here, period. I mean, we have had a run on real estate and
It's the nice golf courses you guys built down the road.
I guess, but I know that out here at the Housing Authority, I mean, they have a wait list that lasts for years and years. So I think that is something that we need to put our heads together on to try to find some affordable housing for people,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, one of the things that we've done over the last couple of years is we've went out there and we've pulled in all of the private landlord systems, so not just depending on public housing authorities and stuff for that housing. We've found that a lot of private landlords are willing to do the rent their units at cost in order to keep those beds full. And so through our TCLI program, we'll actually pay that subsidy to make sure that even if that the member can't pay their rent, we're covering it. And so they like that guaranteedness of the system in our TCLI. And so that's one thing. So we have a full list, a full list as far as we know it, of every landlord in Alleghany County that currently has a rental property out there. And so when we identify someone, we try to go through that list as well and see if we can connect them with a low-end subsidy rental assistance for that. And sometimes the housing authorities will work with us on that. So it is a huge problem. We're also able to, under our Medicaid waiver, we have a B3 service called individual supports. And so with that service, we can actually put some supports into that individual housing to maintain some of that. So that's one way, too, for us to bring in a housing provider and say, hey, cover that, and then also cover some of the costs of the facility, and that guarantees that landlord that this person, making sure that their apartment's going to stay clean, they're not going to have rats and stuff in there, and gives a little bit more assurance, too, that person are getting the services they need. But it's a challenge.
You finished, Michelle? John, you have a follow-up?
Well, just a statement of part of the problem that I've been made aware of in the county. Whenever the pandemic started and they stopped the removal of people for not paying rent, we have a number of people that have rental property that have not received rent for a year. We have one person that owned rental property that was declared unfit for habitation from the earthquake, but they refused to move out, so he's not collecting rent. He can't do anything. The building is uninhabitable, but he's got people in there. He's worried about being in jeopardy. And as a result of all this, there's a number of landlords that it will be a cold day in Hades before they rent again. So we're getting triple dipped here.
Yeah, that's definitely that public policy backlash, right? You think you're doing something good, and it has a result with that. The pandemic's, put us in that situation too. Around.
I'm sure that you've heard it before. It's not a surprise.
No, definitely not a surprise. The same issue is around the workforce. All of our providers right now are all hiring. We've pushed out Avaya. We've probably spent $3 million in the last 3 months for providers just in incentive bonuses, retention of staff, so those staff don't leave their agencies. We're giving retention bonuses plus hiring bonuses just to try to get people to come to work or to find jobs. And so we don't know what the issue is, but licensed clinical staff, qualified professionals, even paraprofessionals now are really hard to engage because in some instances they're getting a higher, they're getting paid just as much for being unemployed as they would if they were employed. It's not our policy, but we are, from our side, we are trying to push out as much incentives as we can to make sure those people re-engage in work. And hopefully with the opening up, we're going to start seeing some improvements with that. But I think it's not just our sector, but all the employment sectors are feeling that.
Just to help you with the problem, whenever your hair starts looking like this,
Not far behind.
yeah, you know where it came from.
Right. No, I am definitely there with you.
Finish, John?
I'm done.
Yep, more?
Yeah, just, I think there's a common theme there of kind of matching the services up with the need, which I kind of feel like that's been some of our challenge, and thanks for that. I think that community navigator position, hopefully they can get plugged in to all the right folks and sort of make that seamless for the need, for those that are in need. And housing, affordable housing, I think it touches more than one area we're challenged in, and I'm happy to see it's on down the list here that we're going to be kind of maybe taking a look at that and hearing some direction or some opportunities to help each other in that area. So, but thanks for coming back and following up thoroughly, and look forward to continuing to work through this as we go forward.
Definitely want to open it up and just see, again, if there's any questions around the Cardinal consolidation. Before the questions, I'll say from our standpoint, that has happened very rapidly. And for us as well, we found out over Memorial Day weekend, so just about a week ago.
Yeah.
We did work that weekend. The challenges, and just to kind of, give you the feel for the lay of the land there, that's not something that VIA went after. We weren't seeking any of that. Cardinal found themselves in a position when Mecklenburg decided to disengage and go somewhere else, and then with Forsyth, those are their two largest counties, that they were not going to be financially sustainable long-term. And they needed help with a partner to stabilize some of their more rural counties. And so they approached us with that. We like to pride ourselves that we think we do pretty good with rural counties. We know they're challenging, and so we agreed to begin that conversation with them to see how we could support those counties in their area and try to address some of the concerns that are going on in those counties that are definitely there and need to be addressed and need to be worked on during this Medicaid transformation process. I like to point out, it's happening in 23 days.
One thing we want to just emphasize is no resources from the current by-catchment area will be leaving the current by-catchment area. Like this county, along with others, will continue to work to improve the system in your county. None of our staffing or anything like that will look any different for any of these counties. Cardinal has a fairly large amount of staff there that at some point will tap into the staff wanting to continue. Bio will be the surviving agency from that consolidation. All of those counties look very similar to this county. It's 14 remaining counties. We're doing as much work as we can to figure out what the challenges are there, how we can maybe address some of those, and to really shore up that system. DHHS was very supportive of VIA stepping in. We obviously asked the state if that's something they would want us to do, and they were very supportive of our agency doing that. Just want to remind you guys too, why would Cardinal want to approach VIA? We consistently, out of the 7 MCOs, perform the highest in the state. So that is really at the top. Their leadership's really committed to making sure members in those counties are getting the best care they can get. So we're committed to making it work. We're committed to make sure things here are as good as they are now and continue to get better. So we just wanted to reassure you of that. We know you got the PowerPoint. Your county manager attended the CAB meeting along with Commissioner Irwin, and just wanted to make sure if there were any questions you had, we could answer those.
John, you had a follow-up?
Well, just basically a comment. It was a surprise, you know, all of a sudden I've got an email saying we're going to have a meeting on Memorial Day, and then finding that you have worked all during the weekend. That's rather unusual. But one thing that did concern me out of that meeting, we're talking about a staff of 900 was mentioned in the meeting. Don't know the debt load the Cardinal's bringing to your board, to your company. I don't believe you know the debt load as of yet. And one thing that really concerns me, and please pass on, and I'm going to be asking the question, who was on New River Mental Health that went to Cardinal that was involved in that management team? Because that's two failed institutions. So.
Yeah, we're definitely concerned about their financial obligations, and that's something we've been working very fast to
That's a
figure
correction. That's your financial obligations
figure
now.
out what that is.
Yeah.
The boards are still finalizing the consolidation agreement, so lots of those discussions are still occurring, but that is something, we appreciate that feedback.
Smarter than I figured that somebody is addressing those questions, but I wanted to let you know that they do concern me, and I look forward to future Zoom meetings so that hopefully, I can get some answers on this. Because you're going to I'm sure you are going to have to adjust your management. You're going to be bringing different people in, possibly.
Well, we're not going to change the way we manage. If anything, you know, we'll be looking to create a little bit of redundancy in the system. I think the challenge is now, at our current size that we're hoping to get there, is if we lose, let's just say Brian retires, which he may in a few years, we don't really have like a next up. And so there is conversation, you know, how can we do a better job of making sure that we don't have setbacks when we have qualified staff that leave? Because we're pretty lean, you know, a flat organization. If we can create some stability in our own organization to say, you know, hey, we're not going to miss a beat if Brian leaves or I leave or somebody leaves, and there's that consistency in there. We are looking for ways to strengthen our own organization through the process and really looking at the quality of the staff that we bring over. Like, I don't think I'm not in the middle of those conversations, but we don't see any way that the 900 staff are coming over into that organization, because with them losing their biggest counties in that money also goes with those counties, right? So we can't afford those numbers of staff. We're going to be looking for the staff that manage the smaller counties, you know, and then if they weren't managing them well, clearly we're going to do something different to make sure that we can change that, you know.
You've touched on one of the big concerns, because Alleghany County is being such a small county. And we were provided a copy of the resolution from Mecklenburg County to disassociated with Cardinal. And it was apparent that they were not satisfied with the services that Cardinal was providing. We don't want that to happen to this county. Especially, we're sitting in a little county with a little over 11,000 residents. We realize that whenever your organization, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're close to half the counties in the state of North Carolina right now, that makes us a pimple on an elephant's behind. We want, you know, we are concerned about the services for our citizens, as we should be, because we represent them. So these are some of my concerns, and I appreciate your candor, your honesty.
Yeah,
on this.
so we know that our survival is based on how well we do with our small rural counties. Because you look at our catchment area, we have no big, huge counties. When you look at Buncombe County Buncombe County's tiny compared to some of those other counties, right? Our
Figures that you showed in here, they've got a problem.
Our plan, our goal is to make sure that we continue to provide excellence to our counties. And whether, the size of it, like we said, there's 238 people that are going to be under our management in Medicaid in 23 days. We're going to keep showing up, and we're going to make sure that that happens. And then our goal and our transparency is that you guys keep us accountable. And I had this conversation with Pam earlier today. If the day comes where you're not getting what you need from us, then we expect that you would go and find it from someone else. But until then, we want you to tell us what your concerns are, what your issues are, and if we can't address it and we can't fix it and we can't be accountable to you and your citizens, then you have obligations. And we respect that, absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you. Anything else, Mark? Michael, any questions? Drew? Heather? Donald, we appreciate it. Brian, we appreciate the time.
And again, if you have any other questions, we'll be here.
Y'all have a good trip back.
Yep, thank you.
Safely. Okay. Next, we're at general business. First up is the budget ordinance. Michael, turn it
Sir.
over to you.
On pages, actually, starting with the third page of your package, is the budget ordinance that we have put together for consideration for the upcoming 21-22 fiscal year. This ordinance includes the changes that were identified at the work session. As you can flip through the pages, you will see the various components that go into that budget ordinance, which includes this year, as mentioned before, the tax rate being the same. We did identify the revenue neutral tax rate. We broke it down by the appropriate funds, and at least in my estimation, this is a presentable and palatable budget for consideration. Therefore, I would ask for consideration of such.
Mr. Chairman.
Questions?
I have no questions. We'll make a motion to accept the 21-22 budget as discussed in the work session and presented to us tonight.
We need a second.
Second.
Any questions on the proposed budget? All those in favor say aye, raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Let's see. These schedules, I think there was some prior discussion possibly about pulling this.
Mr. Chairman, as recommended during our work session previous to this meeting, I will recommend that we table this motion until the mid-month meeting to allow the staff time to provide the answers that we requested.
We need a second.
I'll second that.
There's a second. Any discussion?
Chairman,
Go ahead,
I would
Mr.
just like to
Carter.
ask for, or make a comment for Commissioner Evans. During that discussion, we had a couple of departments that had some additional review of some of the cost in comparison to some of our neighboring counties to provide a more fluid approach. So we decided to just recommend tabling the entire fee structure until the mid-month meeting to allow a consideration of the whole structure at once.
Fair enough.
Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Item number 3, telephone internet RFP, county manager first.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to mention, we also discussed this briefly during the fee schedule discussion. And again, for the benefit of Commissioner Evans, we had the proposed telephone internet RFP before you for tonight that our consultant had put together for us. there is one item within that proposal that identifies Duncan Rec. Now, it is not included within the site specifications, but it is identified in the body. Now, if you went back, I think in your packet, you have a proposal that identifies an October of 2020 date, and I believe sometime later or earlier today, Drew actually provided one that identified a July 30 date. So at the discussion on the fee structure, one of the comments that came forward was to identify in a formal process. I know that we have talked about it informally on different occasions, but a formal up or down by the Board of Commissioners on the future of the pool. And I know that, I think we've talked with Heather briefly about that. I think there's some additional information that we need as to make a decision on the future of that pool. And after I went back and looked and noticing that I had put July 30 for the RFP submittals, I don't believe it would hurt to table that until the mid-month meeting. That would still give us a month and a half to receive proposals, and that would give the board the ability to think more in detail about the pool's future, perhaps gain some additional information both from our attorney and others, and that way we can make an informed presentation and allow you the information to consider as a whole as opposed to piecemealing it at this time.
So your recommendation is to table item 3?
Yes, sir, at this point,
Questions?
till the
Upon the
mid-month meeting.
recommendation of the county manager, I'll make a motion that we table the RFP for telephone until the mid-month meeting.
Second the motion.
Need a second? Mark? All those, any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. 4-0. We'll move that, that's tabled, and move that to the mid-month meeting. Item number 4, Housing Needs Assessment from High Country, Mr. Michael Cooper. Please come up.
Thank you for having us. And, I wish that state government could work out a budget that quick. That was pretty efficient. And I wish the folks in Raleigh could do that.
What
There
you
were a
didn't
lot of
see was
back
the
out.
bi-monthly
Yeah, I'm
meetings.
glad that I didn't-
Bi-weekly meetings from February.
I'll come to these. I don't want to come to the workshop. And I've got Duncan Martin here, who's the executive of the High Country Association of Realtors, which is Alleghany, Ashe, Avery, and Watauga County. So I wanted to, we both wanted to come and present a market update, and we would love to make these at least annual and perhaps quarterly and talk about what's going on in the market and the things that we're up to in the community. So he's got the poll that we did here recently, and I'll talk about that real quick too. But I've got with me some housing numbers as well, but what the market did. You know what it was like, but we've got some specifics to that as well. And so, Michael, do you want me to jump into the poll first, or I can talk about the market numbers first?
Whichever you're most comfortable.
Perfect. Well, so in 2020, our members, so we have about 700 members across the 4-county region, a good number here in Alleghany County as well. Our members in the region sold 3,253 listings for a total of over $1.1 billion in 2020. Both of those are records. The median sale price in the High Country was $285,000. Through the first quarter of 2021, the median sales price has been $340,000. In 2020, we also sold over 1,000 tracts of land worth a total of $110 million. And now, 4 months into this year, our home sales, they're up 44% compared to a year ago. We're coming out of the pandemic, but this kind of growth continues. And in April, homes in the High Country sold for 99% of the asking price, which is an all-time record. And that's, that speaks for itself. But specifically to Alleghany County, I know you'd like to hear it. In 2020, our members sold 249 homes in Alleghany County, worth a total of $41.12 million. That was almost double the number of homes sold in 2019, which was 176. The median sales price in 2020 in Alleghany County was $184,000, but those numbers keep going up. In April alone, 36 homes were sold in Alleghany, worth $9.4 million. That is the most homes ever sold in a month in Alleghany County in our MLS that we've ever recorded. And the median sales price was $228,000 in Alleghany County. So that, you can get just a taste of what is happening here, and that continues to go up. Some of this pandemic stuff is going to go back to normal. I know that interest rates are starting to climb and go back to normal, but I think it's safe to say that the secret is out about the High Country, and that's not just true about Boone or Avery County or Bowling Rock, but it's true about Sparta as well. And there are going to be issues about affordable housing availability, making sure that we can find places for our workforce to live, and we want to work to address those issues. We would love to work with y'all. So we have some resources at our disposal. One of those is the poll that we did in January of this year, and I've got a summary of it, and we can share that so you've got the full poll. It's about 50 pages of good solid data and results that you can comb through if you'd like. But what we saw sort of confirmed what folks were already feeling. Folks in the High Country are happy with being in the High Country. They're happy with their quality of life. 85% of residents rate their quality of life as either excellent or good. 83% say that raising children in the High Country is either excellent or good. 82% say this is an excellent or good place to retire. All of those are really high and really strong. There are also strong majorities, nearly 7 in 10, saying that they have either excellent or good access to health care and to education. Where we don't get as high marks, as you might imagine, housing. Over 70% of residents of the High Country say that housing availability and housing cost is either just fair or poor. So that's sort of flipped from what they say about everything else. So the thing, quality of life is great. We have a lot to offer. People are coming here, and now we need to make sure that we have enough housing for everybody. And we don't want, we're seeing this in other parts of our region where folks who work as teachers, law enforcement officers, folks who make up the backbone of the workforce can't afford to live in town, have to live in Tennessee, have to live in Virginia. And we don't want that to happen here. We want to make sure that Sparta and Alleghany County remains affordable for the people who grew up here and want to continue to raise their family here. So there's a lot to address. And we've got these poll results. You're welcome to look through it. We've also got what we're going to be working on here soon. A proposal has been put forward to us by an organization called the Bowen National Research to do a housing needs assessment for the High Country for our 4-county region. They have done a similar one of these for Wilkes County that came out in 2020 and has been very well received. And they did one for Burke County a couple years ago. So we're going to be working on pursuing that and trying to fund it. And I think that we've identified good stakeholders from across our 4-county region to help us fund it and make this happen this year. And hopefully we'll have the results early next year. But what we want to do is we want to invite the folks here in Alleghany County to have a seat at the table as this work is being done. We want to make sure that what we're studying, what we're trying to work on, these things, that it's worth our while. So if there's things that you would like to see in it, let us know. And we would love to, having the document is good. Most important thing is what you do with it and how you follow up on it. And we want to make sure that folks in the county have a seat at the table, are able to work on that with us to talk about how do you carry it out. So we're going to try to identify properties that can be developed, how we can generate new development, how can we address construction cost, labor, things like that. We're going to get all that in one document, but then we have to do something with it. So I just wanted to plant that seed, let you know that's what we're up to, and would love to make sure that Alleghany has a seat at the table when that work is being performed. But we appreciate being up here. And Duncan may want to say hello as well, our executive, but we want to thank you for the work that you do. So thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners, and thank you. It's my first opportunity to come up and visit with you all. My name is Duncan Martin. I'm the CEO, Executive Officer for the High Country Association of Realtors. As you may or may not be aware, we are the largest trade association in the region. In the past, it has come to my attention that a lot of the focus of the association was spent in Watauga, Blowing Rock, and Avery. And it has been my goal and drive since I took over the position a little over a year ago that we service the entire high country. And that especially means Alleghany. And Alleghany has a special little soft spot in my heart because, yes, I live in Watauga simply to be close to my office. But this is my favorite weekend drive. This is my favorite part of the high country to be up here because to me, Alleghany is the high country. It is the quintessential image of what everybody wants to be and comes up for. I think it is incredibly important that our members support this because the housing issue is not going away. And this is not going to be a repeat of what happened in 2008, 2009. My greatest fear is going to be, we're not going to have a collapse, that's not going to happen. What's going to happen is we just hit full stop. There's nothing left. And what I think is so wonderful, where a lot of what I call the laptop classes have discovered the high country, and that's a wonderful thing. What about the service classes? What about the teachers, the firefighters, the paramedics, the nursing assistants, the people who make sure everybody's taken care of? What are we doing to help them? What are we doing to make sure that they don't have an hour and a half, a 2-hour commute? What are we doing to make sure that they want to be here? Because I'll tell you, if you're living in Tennessee or Virginia, are you going to come an hour and a half both ways every single day? No, eventually you're going to find some place where you have homesteaded. Are you going to come back on the weekend and bring your family in and support the other services here in the community? No, you're not. You're going to stay home. So that's why I think our study is going to be of immense value to you all in your decision-making process and the planning process. Because I look at the high country the way I looked at Mammoth, Aspen, Vale, and Jackson Hole. You either focus and drive the change, or you are changed by the change. And I hope we can create a synergistic relationship where we all together can help shape the change for the high country. Look forward to seeing and speaking you all much more in the future, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions, John? Michelle? Mark?
I'm just wondering, is there an ask for this study? Is there a
I think for now, I think we've been fortunate that we've identified, I think, the funders that we need, and our Realtors Association is going to come up with $10,000. We think it's going to cost about $22,000 to fund it. We've come up with 10. We've got some other good partners, and so luckily I can come up here and not have to.
You're saying no? Enough said. Thank you.
What we are asking for is your participation.
Yeah, we just want you to have a seat at the table when we're talking about this. So yeah.
But we don't have to pay a cover charge.
No, sir. Well,
Keep on talking.
All right.
come to the dance is all we ask.
Yeah. So I figured y'all would appreciate that, but thank you.
It wasn't in the budget, and let me tell you, you won't
Yeah,
get past him.
That's
I
okay.
believe Michelle has a question.
I do have a question. I've been asked a lot by people, how are these people finding us? I mean, there's so many people moving in here right now. It's like an astonishing numbers. And they're coming from California, they're coming from New York, they're coming from Florida. Do you have an answer?
This must be the chamber or the marketers or who, who's putting the word out. I'm not,
They watch your commissioner meetings.
yeah, they watch, I think folks have some familiarity. I mean, Boone, I went to school at Appalachian State. I sort of graduated in 2008 around the time that they really kicked off. I think because of the success of the university, because of places like Blowing Rock, Banner Elk, and things like that, people are familiar with the high country. They say, we want to live there, but maybe they can't afford the $340,000 house in Avery County, Watauga. They're looking around, they find a house in Alleghany County, and that's why it's going up, from 180 to 220. It's going to keep going up because, folks can live in this area they want to be in and have a little bit more affordability for now, but we got to get ahead of it, so.
I can actually answer that question. I was a practicing realtor for over 20 years, residential, commercial, and with the advent of the internet and what was known as syndication in the industry, the number one video game for adults was looking at houses, honestly. Zillow gets 5 million hits every month. These are not transactions, these are people shopping. Then you have lifestyle magazines, you have My Mountain Home magazines and things, which are again on the internet, and it is also a whole synergy of people wanting to get out of the cities, and that has been going on for the last decade. Yeah. Now with the advent of the technology where, as I told everybody, 10 years ago I could buy a condo in Beijing on my phone. Not a problem. What do I know about Beijing? Not a blessed thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find somebody who knows and understands the high country. And what better way to do this? I will also tell you at the annual conventions, when there are 30, 40,000 realtors in the same 4 hotels, we're all talking and everything. And a very good friend of mine, Lee Brown, you probably have never heard of her, but she is a force of nature and well-known in the realtor community. She has been singing North Carolina's praises for years and years, and she has talked about the high country all the way down to the Outer Banks. So North Carolina is known and is promoted in our industry very heavily.
And to piggyback on that, I think it's interesting that COVID, I think, changed things. And if you talked about pre-COVID, the rural-urban divide was a big issue in North Carolina. And now as we come out of that, now that people can work from home from anywhere, now suddenly the fundamentals that you have in a place like Alleghany County, wide open space, the great outdoors, the hiking, the scenery, small town values, sense of community, low crime rate. If you've been living in a city the last year and a half, those are the things you want right now. And so this is where they want to be.
And don't forget, Amazon comes up here, so
Yeah.
what more do you need?
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, I've lived through it 3 times. The current one, it's starting, you're right. I was at Paris Island, 1976, Hilton Head. And the poor Geechees that were living down there, suddenly they couldn't afford the property taxes. They were land poor, and they're gone. Lived around in Cherry Point for 10 years. And they filled up Florida, they filled up Georgia, South Carolina, and they hit Wilmington. And it changed the complete landscape. It's great, but, life as we know it in this community is going to change.
We want to make sure that we're ahead of it and we're prepared and we're supporting the people. Yeah.
Thank you. Michael, anything? Heather? Drew? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank y'all.
Okay, move right along to we're at the set a public hearing. John Irwin.
I would recommend, Mr. Chairman, that we set the public hearing for the animal ordinance at the mid-month meeting. We had input from the public whenever we were working on the ordinance, and the individuals that had input have not expressed any complaints. I have had no one call me concerning the animal ordinance. Normally, I would recommend that we hold a public hearing after normal working hours, but considering the lack of interest displayed by the public, I would recommend a mid-month meeting for our public hearing and then adoption at the same time.
And you want that at the mid-month?
Yes, I would recommend it to mid-month, sir. and I will make that motion.
Any questions?
I do.
Got one question.
Has this been available to the public anyway, other than just hearing about it in these meetings? Have we put it on our website or anything prior to now?
The public has been notified, the public has been informed for all of our work sessions, and I can't remember any work session that the public has attended.
I'm saying that the actual proposed document.
It is not on the website, but to my knowledge. It can certainly be put on there.
Needs to be put on before the public
And
hearing.
Once you set your public hearing date, we can put that as a highlight that comes up, and they'll have complete access to it.
Can that be put on tomorrow, the next day?
Good to go. I'll make a motion that we schedule the public hearing for the animal ordinance and its publication on the county website for consideration on mid-month June meeting.
Any other questions, Mark? Need a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? Carries 4-0. We'll take care of that tomorrow. Good month. Okay, items 6, 7, and 8 are budget amendments, and if Mark wasn't here, the first one is numbered 18. That should be changed to number 19. 19, 20, and 21. And April,
Good evening.
take it away.
Okay. I have 3 budget amendments. All 3 are for the Elections Department. All 3 of them are grant funds. The first one, which is number 19, is in the amount of $2,655. Do you want to go one at a time, or you want to do all 3?
You want to take all these at once or do them individually?
I do them one at a time.
One at a time.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We're going to do them individually. Need a second.
He seconded.
Mark seconded.
All those, any discussion?
I think I need to.
All those in favor, raise your hand. 4-0.
Go.
Next.
Okay. The second one, again, for HAVA grant funds for Elections Department in the amount of $2,900.
You've heard the recommendation. We need a motion and a second.
I'll make a
Second.
motion.
Michelle motion, John second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. 4-0.
And the last one we have is number 21 for $1,761. Same also, it's HAVA grant funds.
Any questions? Need a motion and a second. Mark makes a motion.
Second.
Michelle, second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 9, DPS Courthouse lease agreement. I'll turn that over to Michael and Heather.
Mr. Chairman, members, I'll just start briefly. Pages 33 through 39. I received this letter back on May 20th. It is for space within the courthouse that is currently being occupied by your probation and parole and the lease. And of course, I'll defer to our attorney, but the lease appears to be a standard template lease with the conditions identified accordingly.
And legal is happy with it, looked it through.
Yes, you're actually controlled on this lease by a specific statute, so it's within that. And I think the only reason this comes up now is because they realized that they were out of date on their lease, and so they went through and reviewed and realized that they were delinquent in providing us with a new lease. So the old one had expired. And there's no money changing hands on this, so it's statutory to have to provide this, so everything seems in order to me.
Okay, you've heard, any discussion, questions?
Motion to
Need a
approve.
motion? Mark, motion.
Second.
Michelle, second. Any comment, Mr. Carter? All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed, the same. Carries 4-0. Back page. Fairgrounds Internet Rfp, our new Recreation Director, Mr. Cole Edwards.
Good evening. First one's RFP for the internet as requested. Any questions on that?
Go ahead, questions, John?
Why are you requesting 500 to 1 gig bandwidth?
That was a request from the Fairgrounds Board. And I believe that was a request from users.
You are driving up the cost for that internet, which we probably will not be able to provide at this bandwidth. I believe you might want to check with SkyBest and take their recommendations, because it's going to drive the cost up significantly at this bandwidth, especially on Wi-Fi. Not bad whenever you've got cable, but now we're going over the air. I would recommend that we table until we can check with our duty expert or someone, because I think it's excessive. My general feel is 250 meg would handle the Fiddler's Convention easily.
Michelle, any questions? Mark?
Well, I know they were talking about the what was there, and I don't know what the capacity was. Went back whenever they had the Fiberfest, and it was challenged, I think, to meet the need.
49 megabit.
Yeah.
From the feedback I heard. So, I mean, if we're going to have it, I think we need to make sure the need, and if that's what they're saying the need is.
And that's where the request stems from.
Yeah.
And the feedback I got today was the same. There was some small connectivity issues, but nothing major. They made it through the weekend.
I know there was, I guess it was some information we had seen from SkyBest at a previous conversation regarding this, that the service could be, what they were offering, the service could be taken down. It could be taken down during months that we're not really needing it. We'd still maintain a monthly fee, but would change the rate. So, I mean, having that capability with whomever we look at, but I mean, I definitely would. Users that are going to be out there.
We can always do the RFP, and if it comes in more than we can afford, we don't have to accept the bid. But it would mean doing another RFP.
One thing, I know that we've had numerous discussions, and we're going to have another discussion in the upcoming weeks about the fairgrounds, the advisory board, the whole component of this. Now, as I understand it, this was information, and as we stated when we were going to put the RFPs out for both internet and concessions, that we were going to take the recommendations from the fairgrounds group and incorporate that into the RFP. Now, that's what I believe Cole has done. But what I think could happen is maybe the thought is that we identify different ranges of speeds. Maybe the 500 to 1 is the top tier, and maybe you have, a tier or two lower that you receive bids on as well. And that doesn't necessarily have to go back to the drawing board, but it allows you to receive that information and then compare that to what the actual needs may be. So So if my thinking is anywhere close, maybe we just reword that description of goods and services and we place a tiered approach in it, and then we adjust that tiered approach to what the actual needs of the facility is.
Oh, how long have you worked on this RFP, or did you have an opportunity to work on it?
Did, yeah. This is
Have you been in
mine.
contact with our legal attorney?
He saw it and read over it and approved it.
And John, you had a motion, or you had
No, I
a
was
request?
just questioning the throughput on that, where that number came in. It really doesn't matter, there's only one provider that's going to bid on it, so. But if we specify that speed, it's going to drive the cost up, my opinion.
Michelle, any comment? More?
Could we just go ahead and approve it with the suggested recommendations?
I think so.
And put it out that way?
I think so.
That gives us some,
We just
Variability.
change that to a tiered approach, and then it gives us the time to do the proper follow-up, and we know the pricing for any of that moving forward.
your thoughts, Mr.
I would agree with that.
Make that motion then.
Okay. We have a motion by Martin, second by Michelle. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, like sign. Carries 4-0 with those changes. And Cole, you're still up.
And the second one is an RFP for operation of the concession stands at the fairgrounds. Pretty much same language, different service.
Where do you get the consultation from the Alleghany Fairgrounds Board?
Well, it was just Fairgrounds Board, and we added Parks and Recreation and the commissioners.
Commissioners, Parks and the Alleghany Fairgrounds Board advises, we decide. And you work at the direction of this board. I think those two entities be removed from the RFP.
May I make one comment?
Go ahead.
Just to explain. So, the previous RFP was worded much differently than this. So the thought behind, I think you're talking about the second paragraph on page 2. So it says, "The contractor shall create a menu and prices which must be approved
Right.
by the Alleghany Board of Commissioners." Okay. Upon, and as I understood it, we were taking the Fairgrounds Board as an advisory group. So by adding the words "upon recommendation of the Alleghany County Parks and Rec Director with consultation," that just means the interaction of the Fairgrounds Board, then you have a recommendation that has been reviewed by the advisory board, which would be the fairgrounds. You have your recommendation coming from your Parks Director, presented in an advisory capacity to the governing body for final ruling.
That is superfluous information in the RFP. Now, how this board reaches a decision and who we consult does not need to be identified in the RFP.
Okay.
This is another grounds where people can say that we are running the organization. Now, I've dealt with too many federal union employees at Cherry Point to allow any wiggle room in something other like this. I've got scar tissue on my fanny where by allowing something like this, they came after me. County commissioners is all we need because the buck stops here, in my opinion. Now, if my fellow board members want to let it pass, have at it. But I'm telling you, don't need to go that far, my opinion.
Michelle, any questions, comments? Mark?
Well, I mean, I see that, that we are the ones that are ultimate approval in the process. So I personally don't have a challenge with it. I would move to approve it as it is.
You keep referring to the word advisory. I don't see the word advisory board. I see the word Fairgrounds board. Are they an advisory board or are they a governing board?
Thought that had already been determined.
When was that determined?
I thought we had a work session that talked about that.
Mr. County Manager, I agree with you, and I was under the impression whenever we walked out of that work session that that was the understanding that we had, and lo and behold, at the next Commissioners meeting, we are presented by the Fairgrounds Board a contract for internet service. Now, that is an action of an agent, and that is not an advisory action. So apparently we have a conflict in definitions here. This poor old Bud Marine thought that they were going to advise us we needed internet access, not come in with a contract. Now, I admit, I'm just a plain old dumb Mud Marine, but something crosses me here that just ain't right.
Just this comment, I think Alleghany County, that's the government of the county, we're ultimately responsible. They're sharing in a decision that makes us responsible. Am I reading it wrong, or?
They're making a recommendation for you, not a final determination. They are making a recommendation as I read this. Now, you can take it or leave it.
I go to legal.
Well, consultation means that two people are sitting down and we are conversing in my mind. Now, we may be talking about how many angels can fit on the head of a pin, but let's say that this board takes action without talking to the Fairgrounds Board. We are in violation of the RFP. Anyone that has filed a response to the RFP can come back and challenge us.
I'm not comfortable with that language. There's no legal ramifications for stopping where it says contractor shall create a menu and prices which must be approved by Alleghany County Board of Commissioners, period.
And then we can consult with anyone that we want in our deliberations.
Michelle, any comment? Mark?
I still believe it's, we're listening to recommendations. We're the ultimate decision makers, and there's still a motion on the floor.
Mark has a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Michelle seconds it. Any discussion? All those in favor as written, signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? 2-2, motion dies. It can be brought back up at the next regular scheduled meeting.
Mid-month meeting.
Anything else, Cole?
That's it.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That was Fairgrounds, and we voted. County manager's comments.
Sir, I have a few. First one is I would like to just again express appreciation to our Budget Committee. I think that April Hammond, Sidney Moxley, Drew Temple, myself, Commissioner Bobby Irwin, and Commissioner Bill Osborne for working on the budget, and of course Commissioner Evans, Luffman, and John Irwin for your support in that. That was a huge undertaking, and we're certainly appreciative of that. The next item, I believe I identified that we had received bids back on the courthouse roof, and in brief conversation, I will say that they are well above what our engineer had estimated. So at this point, the engineer, the various contractors, our friends at the state level, and ourselves are in the middle of talking through and trying to identify ways to bring those more into an acceptable fashion and how to accomplish what we need for that. So I'll keep you posted accordingly on that. The third one is, as you recall in previous discussions, we have an opportunity for a Psat grant. That grant was actually submitted on June 1st to the 911 board. We're actually having some conversation with representatives of that board tomorrow. They have received it. I won't go into the specifics, but I'll certainly give you just a couple of numbers. As you recall, we had talked about at our last orientation of it about providing space here at this facility. The total expenditures within that grant totaled $348,351. So we're very hopeful that the 911 board will look favorably upon that. And again, I will send out some details to that to you so you can see the breakdowns. And the last item that I have, as you recall, we solicited RFPs for auditing services for the upcoming year. And we actually received 3 back, and they are remarkably close, at least in their initial approach. And April and Sydney and Drew and I are going to have some communication with these 3 providers later this week with hopes of fleshing it out and then coming back at our mid-month meeting and making a recommendation on the selection of the auditing firm for at least the next year, with the potential of a longer period of time with successive renewals. So that's all I have tonight.
Or to commissioners' comments. I'll start with Mark.
Okay, thank you. I would like to commend fellow commissioners that were on the Budget Committee and all the staff and all the hours you put in. We didn't get a chance to debate a whole lot of it, but that's because of the time and effort y'all put in and had kind of pretty well, didn't leave us much soup to work with. But I really appreciate the time and effort put into that. It made it look tonight like it was, a piece of cake. I think Ashe County is just now starting to dive into theirs, so I wish them well. Through that, I just want to speak out publicly in appreciation for our fire departments. I know there were some challenges with this first year and this taxing authority that we created, and the things that we were wanting to see, and the communication challenges. I mean, we got to understand they're all volunteers, so they're not sitting there at a desk kind of waiting to get this information and get it out, and it's passed from one person to another. I know some of us heard back from different ones, but I appreciate all of them, and they're kind of working through to get sort of to the end. I think we've still got some opportunity to go forward, maybe tweak some things, but I just thank them for working with us and getting to where we are with that. And also, I just wanted to give a shout out that I thought the public hearing that we had on the budget and all the folks that came in, I'm very appreciative of their passion, their dedication in their areas. and the respect that they displayed and while making their pleas, and then actually then the manager going back and staff, I'm sure, I don't know who all was involved in that, and was able to find a little bit more that we were able to go back and work with some of that. So it was I think we did very well with what we had to work with, but I think the budget looks real well, and financially y'all got us going, got the ship sailing in a very positive direction, and then sailing just a little bit higher because of it. Thank you.
Jill?
I want to also echo those sentiments. There was a lot of work that went into the budget. It's greatly appreciated. And I want Mr. Owens to understand that we hear you, and, you know, I'm not a fan of governmental control and oversight over everything. You know, so many things could be solved if we operated by the golden rule, you know, compassion and respect for your neighbor. And I hope that people that are in this community and those who are moving here will operate under those rules. And, you know, nobody wants to be woken up in the middle of the night or late at night, and we just need to have respect for one another and our community. And the next thing I want to bring up is community planning. It's very important that we're in you heard from the High Country Realty people, the group, we're growing by leaps and bounds, by the speed of sound. It's at warp speed. We need to plan our community out. We need to be able to have opportunities for our children to be able to find housing and afford housing to be able to stay in this community. And, you know, we want to welcome those that are coming into our community, but we also want to retain our heritage too. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Ron?
I would like to compliment the county staff on the Memorial Day ceremony down at Veterans Park. It was clean, well set up, and everything went well. It's always disappointing whenever you look out and you don't see that many young participants. There was more gray hair there than anything else. Memorial Day, it just gets under my skin whenever people come up and say Memorial Day, Happy Memorial Day, because they know you're a vet. It's not for us, that's Veterans Day. And it comes right down to Thomas's comments. One time that I scared my dear wife to death is when I had a bad dream. And it will kick off. Bobby will tell you this, Thomas will tell you this, a smell, word. You're right back. It scared me to death because I could have killed her. Fireworks to you may be fun and games. It's a bad dream to us. Have some respect, please. And kicking off on the same thing, yesterday, 6th of June, 77th anniversary of the most monumental day in the history of the world. The largest invasion, D-Day. And not a word came out of the president or the vice president's mouth acknowledging the day. Bobby and I and Thomas, we grew up. And we grew up around men that made the jump. Kurt Folger jumped in on D-Day, 82nd Airborne. Amos Edwards came across Omaha Beach. Paul Irwin knew. Now Paul Irwin had started with the invasion of Algiers. Went through the Battle of the Bulge. He told his children that he knew that he would survive a war. when he got across Omaha Beach. These were men that 19, 18 years old, 20 years old, not had a chance to start a life, and they went across that beach. We don't even acknowledge them. We don't even teach history. You ask the millennials how many Jews were killed in World War II by Hitler, they can't even tell you because they aren't taught. You look at Hitler as a sadist. Stalin killed 40 million. He made Hitler look like a Boy Scout. But because he was an ally against Hitler, we don't point that out. God help us if we forget history. If we do not remember history, we are destined to relive it. The volunteer fire departments do a great job. I'd like to thank them. They're there. Growth, I went through it. I watched it at Paris Island whenever Hilton Head was just beginning to be developed. What they don't tell you is what happened to the people that were living around there, as they were known as Geechees, poor black former slaves that owned the land, and then suddenly the land became valuable and they were moved off. They had nowhere to go, no education. It hurt. I watched Wilmington turn from a small town into what it is today. You can't recognize it. If we do not get a handle on growth, if we do not watch it, we will lose this paradise we call Alleghany County. What we love, they are coming for. But they will bring their values, their way of doing things with them. This weekend we had decoration at Shiloh, Woodruff, and Glade Creek. They don't know what decoration is, but this is ingrained with us. Please remember that. There's good and there's bad. And other than that, Thomas, there's little that we can do. We will look at it. And thank you for your service.
Thank you, John. I'd like to also comment on Memorial Day. Our maintenance crew, I thought, did a great job having everything open. The grass was mowed, everything looked great, bathrooms were open, very clean. We appreciate all the work that they did on a day off, and several of them did it on their day off. They came in to help, and I appreciate that. I'd like to speak to a minute about the rescue squad, and about 10 days ago or so, they had two dump trucks that collided out on, I think it was 93 or 113. They had to cut one of the people out. Now, if we didn't have the rescue squad, I was talking to them at the Memorial Day service. They said it would have taken Ashe County 45 minutes more, or 45 or more minutes to get here to cut that individual out. Fortunately, we were able to do it. But I think the Board of Commissioners realize, all of us do, the county government realizes, we've got to look at helping the rescue squad more than we were able to this year. That's a vital service that we have, and we've got to support them. I'm not sure, but I just got an email a few minutes ago that I think we're going to be able to start the brick sale again. The Polar Brick Company has been authorized, according to their email, to produce the logos again. They've gotten that from the Department of Defense. So next few weeks, we'll hopefully have an announcement about that. And Heather, you got anything to say in between coughing, or
No.
Michael? Drew?
No.
This is one time you're quiet. Usually, you've got plenty to say. With that, we have a request for closed session. That's pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11.A-3 legal. And with that, I'd entertain a motion to go into
I will
closed
make that
session.
motion, Mr. Chairman, on the proviso that we have 10 minutes for the replenishment and disbursement of human fluids.
We'll try to hold that to 5 or 6 minutes, just
All right.
quick as we can. Second, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
We're in closed session. Thank you all.